Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Full Count Podcast. This time around, we have Sway, we have Nick. The first time that the two of us are together. First time the two of us are talking one-on-one. So we have some pretty cool stuff we want to talk about today. We're going to go over our thoughts on the first 2 weeks of the season, who's doing well, who sucks, what surprises we've seen so far. We'll also dive into what's going on with the pitchers, injuries, and we'll probably touch on the Ohtani update that came on today. Yeah. But we'll start. Yeah, we've kind of predicted before episode 2 before this who we thought would finish each division and why. And first 2 weeks of the season, there hasn't been many surprises in a good way. So, Nick, if you want to talk about your Yanks, I'll talk about my Dodgers, and let's see who has the better case of who's a top team so far.
So, let's just start off right off the bat, who we think is going to go to the World Series, and then we can get into where we are now. So I know you said this before, Sway, but who do you think is going to?
I said a few weeks ago, I'm predicting the Dodgers and the Mariners. And I think the Dodgers is kind of a given. I think a lot of people are going to either choose the Dodgers or Braves to be there. But I feel on the AL side, there's always that surprise team that comes around every 2-3 years, like the Nationals. Last year with the Rangers. Before that, who else? The Diamondbacks. So there's always that Cinderella team. I think it's about time that the Mariners actually do something in the playoffs and surprise the world. So I have the Dodgers over the Mariners in 6 games, which I think will be a hell of a fun season for the Mariners, and it'll get their fans back on track for the foreseeable future. So that's who I had in this year's World Series.
Yeah. No, that's a good prediction. I mean, I think it's probably going to be, I would like it to be, but I think it's going to be the Yankees and the Dodgers. I would like to see the Yankees and who is it? The Braves, maybe early 2000s. I think it was the Yankees and the Braves, right? A couple of times in the playoffs. I know that. But I think they also, I can't remember if they played in the World Series or not.
I think they did. I couldn't 100% tell you. I do remember watching Braves games all the time as a kid because TBS.
Yeah, I was actually just talking about this to somebody else, and we were talking about baseball. And it's just funny how it's always been, at least I think, it's always been the Yankees and then another team, whoever like that runner-up team is at the time. You know, really like way back in the day, maybe even like late 90s, early 2000s, it was, I think the Marlins, right? And then the Braves, or maybe vice versa. And then who came up after that? I think it was, then the Red Sox, right? Kind of came up and out and was like the Yankees rival after that. But I just find it kind of funny being a Yankees fan that it's always been the Yankees and somebody else.
Yeah, it's a good problem to have, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's a dream matchup that everybody wants. But this is how I feel, and I'm being brutally honest because I'm a Dodger fan. We always have these high expectations. We have great regular seasons. We get in the postseason and just shit the bed. I couldn't tell you how many times I've ended my night once our season ends in tears. But the Dodgers and the Yankees have been really similar with that since 2009 or so. We'll go into the playoffs, all this momentum, and just absolutely lose it and let the fans down. So although I think that's a dream matchup that everyone wants to see, I think one of us or both of us are going to find a way to mess it up and not get to the final step there.
Yeah, I agree with you. That always happens. It's kind of a disappointment, but gotta root for it at least.
All right, so on Monday, MLB came out with their weekly power rankings, and Nick, this is what they had 2 weeks in the season. So, one, they had the Dodgers ranked number 1, number 2, the Yankees, followed by the Braves, the Rangers, and they rounded out with the Orioles. So I think these are fair rankings. I think they're not any surprises to anybody. Everyone knew that these teams are going to come out strong. I would say the Dodgers and the Yankees, they could be interchangeable, 1 or 2. No one's going to be upset if either one of those are 1 or 2. But we have some pretty good stories of why these teams have started so strong, and hopefully they can carry that momentum. I'll start with the Dodgers. The Dodgers have Mookie Betts. Mookie Betts is the type that's willing to play any position. Originally scheduled in the outfield, then he was given the tap on the shoulder. It's like, hey, you're going to play second base this year, and so he mentally prepared to play second base. Then we have Gavin Lux in there at shortstop. He wasn't living up to his potential coming back from injury during spring training, so the Dodgers tapped Mookie Betts on the shoulder once again. It's like, hey, I know you've learned second base. You've done a hell of a job adapting to that. Now we're going to throw you to a position that you know even less about. We're going to put you in shortstop, which I understand he hasn't played shortstop since maybe his first year in the minor leagues or high school. So he's done a hell of a job defensively, hasn't made any errors. He's leading the league in every statistical category offensively across the board. So I think Mookie Betts has lived up to those expectations thus far. Maybe they're a little lofty right now because there's no way that he can keep up with all that stuff. But he's getting on base. He's batting. He's taking walks. He's hitting for power. There's nothing that he's not doing right now. And then on top of that, like the biggest story of the offseason is Ohtani coming to the Dodgers. He had a slow start, and looking back now, we could probably understand why with the gambling thing. And I'm sure that's stressful. I'm sure that weighs on his mind. His translator was probably his best bud. I'm sure you go one day of having somebody by your side for the last few years to all of a sudden it's like completely out of your life. That has to take a toll. So he had a slower start, but once he kind of got past that, he's been on an absolute tear. I think like the last 6 or 7 games, he's had at least one extra base hit. He's batting like 340 right now. I think the Dodgers are firing on all cylinders, and Ohtani and Betts are leading the way. And then on top of that, I think people kind of doubted the Dodgers pitching to see if they're durable for the long run. And the big question mark was Glass now. He has an injury history. He starts off well, but it doesn't last throughout the season. So far, he looks pretty good. Had an amazing game, but 2 days ago, 14 strikeouts, no earned runs, absolute gem of a game. So that's what's carrying the Dodgers right now. And understandably, they're number one. But like I said, the Yankees are right behind them. They have some pretty good people. I watched that game the other day when Nasty Nestor was on the mound. I think he went 7, 8 innings, no earned runs. I absolutely love him. It might just be the mustache or just being Nasty Nestor. I don't know if you remember this being a Yankees fan. It was like a season or 2 ago, but one of the announcers, they got in trouble for calling him Nestor the Molester. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I think I heard about that. Yeah.
I think that's
horrible.
I think that's what he got on my radar. I was like, who is this guy that just called Nestor the Molester? But
yeah, right.
since then, I've been a big fan. I think he's good for baseball. But on top of that, like Soto, he's batting like 360. Verdugo, which offensively is not killing it, but I think he's one of those motivational people. He's fun to have on the team. He's a former Dodger. I loved him when he was on the Dodgers. I know he went to the Red Sox in that Mookie Betts trade, and they thought he was an absolute dickhead, which is understandable. I could see like a young kid coming in there, rubbing people the wrong way. But I think he's found his home as a Yankee.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
Watch all the games, right?
Yeah, and I know. So I watched. What was it? I think it was the last game. But I know a lot of people are questioning if Soto kind of has found more of a permanent home with the Yankees. And then, like you were saying, he's been performing really well. So, I mean, I would like to see that. That's for sure. But I guess we'll see. I don't know exactly how long his contract is. But I don't know if you do, Sway. Off the top of your head.
This is his contract year. So
yeah, right.
He'll be a free agent at the end of the year, and this is where he can cash in. So,
he's cashing in. Okay, I didn't know that.
Well, we'll see. They're expecting him to get at least $500 million.
Okay,
I'm thinking it's going to be more like an Ohtani type contract, maybe 600,
really?
700. He brings in fans. He gets butts in the seats and eyeballs watching the games. He's fun, young. He'll be here for. I think he's only 25 years old. So
yeah, he is. So and it's insane. A lot of these players with these huge contracts are so young. They're like between 22 and 25. It's crazy.
Yeah,
the pressure. But like you said, if it's bringing in the money, then sports is a business, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
So who else we got? And then we got the Braves coming in at number 3,
Mm-hmm.
which I think is fair. I think the Braves, they're strong. They've had the people perform so far that you expect to perform. The Matt Olsons of the world, the Ozunas. We have Michael Harris batting 341 so far. The only hiccup, which is kind of heartbreaking, is Spencer Strider getting injured and most likely requiring Tommy John surgery. I think that's a punch in the gut
Yep.
for not only the Braves, their fans, but just baseball. He was fun to watch. He was one of those guys that I don't think anybody dislikes. So that sucks. And I think that because of this, the Braves kind of take a hit in the long run. Once they get into October, can they really win those real close games without that Cy Young candidate pitcher like in Strider?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. As far as, was it Tommy John surgery, right? Do you know exactly what that entails?
I know they're just putting a new ligament in there. I don't know the details.
Yeah.
That's pretty gnarly.
Yeah, I heard
But
it's a
it is
pretty
one of those
long
things that
recovery.
people seem to come back better sometimes because of it. It's
Mm,
just a hell of a recovery time.
right. Yeah, that's what I heard. Yeah, so I mean, he'll be out at least for the rest of the season and maybe even to next season, right? So
Oh, for sure. Yeah, maybe like
yeah,
July of next year.
yeah, yeah, that's crazy. All right. So who do we have up next?
Then the Rangers at 7-5 as of
Mhm.
earlier today, which is no surprise. They just came off a World Series victory. For the most part, everyone's returning. You have Corey Seager doing Corey Seager things. You have Marcus
Mhm.
Semien. And then eventually you're going to have Scherzer, DeGrom, and the other pitchers come back. So
Mhm.
I don't predict them winning the AL West. I didn't even have them making the playoffs, to be honest. But
Mhm.
it's a good start. I just feel like when you win the World Series, there's always some kind of hangover.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. There definitely is. Because it's like that high moment, and then you're like, okay, we could do anything. We could make it again. And you kind of, a lot of teams just kind of get full of themselves
They
and
say baseball is the
overestimate.
hardest it's the hardest sport to repeat in. There hasn't been
Mm,
a repeat champion since the Yankees in was that
hmm
99 and 2000, I think the years were.
Yeah, I think so. I think that was the only repeat. Um, and
Who
that
else?
was
You have the Orioles, which I absolutely love the Orioles. I'm so bullish on them. They're so young. They just had Jackson Holiday debut yesterday. He went 0 for 1 with a strikeout.
hmm
Well, I just think it's such a cool story. You grew up in the clubhouse because your dad. Um, I don't know. I think that's like dream situation. Like I have a son. I
hmm
couldn't imagine my son making the big leagues, especially if you were a player and then
yeah.
having your son also get to experience that stuff. It's such a cool story.
hmm
And I
hmm
could see the Orioles doing some major damage
Yeah.
here with a deep playoff run, but we'll see. I think they just have all the pieces in place now
hmm
after years and years and years of rebuilding.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's for sure. Um, so that was the top five, right?
Yeah, so that's
Mhm.
power rankings according to the
Yeah,
MLB as of like
right.
Monday or Tuesday, something
So
like that.
I got a question for you, Sway. Do you play fantasy baseball?
I do, but I fucking hate it. My wife got me into it.
Why?
I can't keep up with it. It's just too much work, and yeah, I reluctantly got back into it this year, and I think I'm in last place in both teams because I don't care. I can't do it. It's
I would think you would be good at it, to be honest.
I don't
Just
like
because.
fantasy football either.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm not a fan of either. I don't play either, but I could see you being, pretty good at it and making some bucks from it, just because you follow, baseball so closely.
Yeah, I like baseball because it's fun. Or for
Hmm
me, like fantasy baseball, it becomes a job.
Yeah, it
And
does.
like I'm like one of those super competitive people. Like if I take something on, I'm gonna give my full effort, and
Hmm
I don't want to give my full effort to that. So I didn't even want to take it on the first place. So every that's watching, I know there's some of our subscribers,
Yeah.
Tyler, Boat. I don't want to fucking do this.
Just clapping out.
So yeah, don't judge me for being in last place, but that's exactly why I'm in last place.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. One of my buddies, so Andrew's brother-in-law, he's big into fantasy football, not so much baseball, but he's in I don't know how many leagues. I mean, he wins quite a good amount every season.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you said, it's a full-time job almost.
Yeah, I got enough on my plate. I want none.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. All right.
So what else we got? We have some pretty cool pitchers. I think that have not surprised because I think everyone's expected these 4 guys to do what they've done so far. Like say for example, we were just talking about the Orioles. The Orioles made a great trade in getting Corbin Burns this offseason from the Brewers. He's off to an amazing start. I think a lot of people pick them as their Cy Young pick, as I did for the AL. He's already off to a hot start. His ERA is only 1.93. And then you have Zach Wheeler with the Phillies with a 1.89 ERA, followed by Zach Gallen, he's with the Diamondbacks. He was instrumental in that playoff run last year at a 2.25 ERA. And then Glasnow with the Dodgers. Pretty strong start. His first start in Korea. I mean, give him a pass at that. Did okay. But his last game here, I think it was like Monday or Tuesday, had 14 strikeouts, like I was saying earlier, 3 hits, 0 earned runs. I think that really put him on the radar.
Yeah.
And fingers crossed. Like we hope that he could stay healthy. We hope that he could lead us to the promised land and get another ring. And I think along the way, an all-star berth, hopefully a Cy Young as well. But we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be pretty cool if he does, Who
are some of the pitchers that you like so far?
That's a good question. To be honest, I'm horrible with the names. I mean, I have mixed feelings about the current Yankees pitcher. But I mean, other than that, I really don't. Like I said, I follow baseball some, so I'm not like huge, baseball fan.
Yeah.
But I usually watch. I'm one of those baseball fans where I watch it when it gets closer to the end of the season, gets closer to the playoffs, right? And then obviously the World Series. Yeah, I mean, I probably don't have like a favorite one. I mean, I know we were talking about all the pitching and the injuries that the pitchers are going through now, right? Yeah. And it changes to the pitch clock and all of that. So I don't know if you want to get into that now, but we can switch gears and go into that.
Yeah, you guys have 2 pitchers that have been like prime examples of that in Garrett Cole. The other guy's last name starts with an L. That he also went down with an elbow injury.
Yeah, it was name slipping my mind. I can't remember.
So they have some philosophies for that, and I'm kind of torn. Like they're saying the pitch clock, like you were saying, has something to do with that. A few other factors, but the thing is, like, elbow injuries have been a part of the game forever. It's just like maybe they're now more pronounced. Maybe they're getting more attention.
Right.
And there's a few videos going around. I was watching this video, I think it was from last year, of Tyler Glasnow explaining that when MLB banned the sticky stuff, the tack, it forced pitchers to have to grip the ball harder to be able to throw the same velocity as they were with the sticky stuff. So that's inevitably. I still didn't say that word right, but that's going to cause problems once you do it over and over and over and over. So that might play into it. I don't think the pitch clock does, because they talk about like recovery time between pitches.
Yeah.
These are top athletes in the world. I'm sure conditioning is not really an issue for them.
Right.
But I think the sticky stuff, getting rid of that stuff, may play a factor, but
could definitely play a factor. So remind me, what's the time difference between what the pitch, so like how much time they had before and how much time they have now?
There was no set time. So you have pitchers that took their time. Yeah. I remember there's a pitcher named Pedro Baez that was on the Dodgers, and he was notorious. He would take like 30, 40 seconds between pitches. And it was excruciating. Like even being a Dodger fan, you're just like, dude, pick up the fucking ball and pitch. This game's going to be 4 hours long if we don't get this guy out of here.
Yeah.
He wasn't very popular. as you can tell with the Dodgers. I know
Right.
he got booed sometimes, but that's what turns people off to baseball.
Hmm.
Baseball is one of those sports that if you're not brought up with baseball, you're probably not going to just pick it up out of nowhere like you would like the NBA or the NFL.
Yeah, 100%.
And stuff like that doesn't help engaging fans, whereas
Mm,
pitch clock does. So now, before there was no time limit, there was no anything. It was just whatever the pitcher's
yeah,
pace was. Now it's 20 seconds,
right.
20 seconds, maybe 18 seconds. One of those, which has sped the game up tremendously. I think games are
Hmm.
at half an hour less on average last year. So that's cool for me.
Right.
I don't want to stay up till 10:30, 11. I got kids.
Yeah, I do. I do remember when they implemented. I mean, I think it is a good idea, like you said, to speed up games. Um, but I mean, I think it has. I wouldn't say a detrimental effect on the pitcher, right? As far as like having these injuries, but I think it definitely is a factor that should be considered, right? Um, Especially as these pitchers get older or they're pitching more games, right? I definitely think it's a factor in those cases, but probably like you were saying, there's other things that are maybe a bigger factor. I know that one of the videos that Andrew sent over, and then I heard this actually on the MLB radio too. A couple of people were saying that the minimum like now is 100 mile an hour like pitch, whereas before that wasn't necessarily the baseline, the norm. You know what I mean? Um, so I mean that could be it, as well as the sticky stuff, like you said. So it's harder for them to hit that baseline mile per hour pitch without that as well, right? So I mean, I think that's probably a bigger factor than the pitch clock. Um, but I mean, as far as recovery time goes, that I think it's more about how they're recovering after the games rather than during it.
Yeah, I agree with you too.
Hmm.
And pitching's not a natural motion that your body should be
No.
doing. And if you do that thousands and thousands of times,
Hmm.
eventually it's gonna take its toll, just like with anything.
Yeah, exactly. But I do think that overall, I mean, yes, we see this in sports, and I don't know. It seems as though a lot of people would argue that we're seeing more and more injuries in sports in general, right?
Yeah.
And specifically like joint and tendon injuries, right? And I know I mentioned this to you, but I've been dealing with a number of joint and tendon injuries myself, and I know a lot of people who have.
Yeah.
And I do think that it does have something to do with not to go into like this whole tangent, but I do think it has something to do with our environment. The quality of like food we're eating, the quality of water we're drinking, all of that. I mean, these are top athletes, and I'm sure they're getting the best of the best. But if the source is still tainted with something, then no matter who you are, it's where you're getting it from, right?
Yep.
So I mean, I think that it does have a big factor too. I mean, even not to go into like conspiracy theories or anything, but a lot of people are also saying that this has been slightly a repercussion of the different diseases that we have out there now, and how not only COVID but other things that weren't around 5, 10, 12 years ago, right? That are affecting people later on. Like they might recover it from it, but then later on they're getting these other issues. So could definitely be a factor. I mean, athletes are human, so.
Yeah. So I love conspiracy theories. I'm all about them. I, I welcome some discussions when it comes to conspiracy.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do agree with that. I think a lot of stuff is environmental.
Yep. 100%. 100%. Yeah, because I mean, I've been seeing a lot of different doctors and orthopedics and other doctors who specialize in specific things. And one thing that they've been seeing in the medical field, right, is that as it relates to yes, COVID and like yes, the vaccines, but also other things from the environment that are affecting certain biomarkers that are causing like this chronic inflammation in the joints or weakening of the tendons or muscles, right? Or even like neurological issues between like the muscle and mind connection, right? That more or less subconscious. And when you get these biomarkers done, then that's only when you see, okay, well, this is causing those issues, so you really don't know until kind of you look under the hood. And I'm sure they're getting looked under the hood all the time. It just depends on who's looking and where you're looking, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're getting old, Nick. We're getting old quick.
Some faster than others, I guess.
We're falling apart little by little, day by day.
Yeah, right. Exactly. But all right, take one day at a time. I guess that's why they're, they're so young, being professional athletes, 25, 22, 23, you know what I mean? So
once 30 comes around, though, they just fall apart. Not just baseball, but all sports.
Yeah, or all of us in general. I don't know. I think that something about that 30 mark. It's a doozy.
But yeah, what else we got? We got some Ohtani stuff. What have you heard so far about this whole Ohtani thing?
So, first I know they were saying that his translator, like misinterpreted purposely to and then they were saying that he stole money from him, and then they were saying that he gambled it away, right? And they were questioning if Ohtani was part of it or knew about it. And I mean, I really don't think he was. And I know they just came out with, the findings that he had stolen money from him, he was illegally gambling, and that he was pretty much lying to Ohtani. And I really don't think Ohtani had any insight to it. I mean, maybe he was skeptical and maybe, kind of just ignored maybe his instincts about it. But I don't think he was part of it or anything. Why? What do you think?
No, yeah, I think you're right. I think Ohtani was like innocent. I think that's everything that we've seen up till today has proven that.
Mm-hmm.
But pretty crazy how this all went down. I was listening to this. Listening to the Foul Territory podcast, which I love. AJ Prasinski. If you want to have us on, we're here. I'm just kidding, but they were talking about like they're reading the affidavit, and they were saying that bookie won $140 million, but lost $40 million. I don't know how. Maybe I didn't hear right or whatever, but that just goes to show like this was going on forever.
Yeah,
and it also mentioned that the interpreter was calling the banks and acting as Ohtani to get these wire transfers to get approved.
Really, I didn't know that.
Ohtani had no knowledge of it, and like the government officials were asking for his phone records and all that kind of stuff, and he gladly complied. And luckily, it worked out in Ohtani's favor. Like he didn't know about the stuff, but I think there's a lot that we don't know that's still yet to be uncovered. That's going to be super interesting to see how this guy got away with it for so long.
I mean, he just trusted everything with him, right? I mean, he was apparently his good friend, and he probably didn't think he would do that. But when money comes into play, sometimes people turn, and it's as unfortunate as it is. You know what I mean? But yeah, he probably just let him run with everything. He's like, okay, here you go. He's just trustworthy. He seems like that kind of guy that's just, good, down to earth, like very trustworthy kind of guy. So yeah, I think that's probably the case.
Everyone's gullible and like trust people until they get burned. I don't think Ohtani's ever going to be the same way again. He's gonna question everyone's intention that comes into his life, which is kind of sad. You have to when you're that high profile of a person, high profile of a player. I think I was listening the other day. It's like he's the most popular person in Japan, not just athlete, but just overall celebrity. Like you can't live a normal life when the spotlight's on you all the time.
Yeah, no, definitely not. And yeah, it's unfortunate how one rotten apple kind of ruins somebody's perspective. I mean, I'm sure it's happened to you. It's happened to me. Probably. I mean, on a smaller scale, like somebody didn't steal $40 million from me. If I had $40 million that somebody could steal, hey, then
don't even have $40 still.
yeah, right, exactly. But we're getting there. We're getting there one day at a time. But yeah, it's just kind of unfortunate how, those things happen. And I know we were just talking about like age and getting older, right? As we go through life, these things happen, and then all of a sudden we become hyper aware, or basically flip to the other side of the coin of how we would act or what we would think before that, right? And then we just got to find that middle ground. So I think it's definitely gonna be a while before Otani takes, feels comfortable with trusting anybody. So.
Yeah, and I was even thinking, it was like he just recently got married.
Mm.
And I was wondering, is it more strategic? Like he gets this marriage out of the way before his like fame just explodes 100 times more, where he can't ever be in a position to meet a regular girl,
Yeah,
in like a normal setting ever again. But I guess
yeah,
those
that's
things you have to think about is like even your personal relationships and all that kind of stuff when you're that mega famous.
yeah. I mean, that's the downfall of fame, right?
Yeah.
I always thought about that. Like, if I was famous, that would be pretty unfortunate, because if everybody knows you everywhere you go, then it's like, okay, they just put on a show because of who you are and how they know you, or are they actually, that's how they are in general, right?
So, yeah, you ever hear that question? Is like, would you rather be rich and famous or just rich? And nobody, smart people always just say, I just want to be rich.
Yes.
The people that want that attention is like, I want to be famous too. Like, I want nothing to do with that. I want to walk to the store and not have a conversation with a single soul.
Right. Yeah, because you never get any alone time. Like, I mean, look at all the actors and actresses, right? They gotta like lock themselves away, have like bodyguards surrounding their house just to get some peace and quiet.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I give them props. That's for sure. I definitely need some quiet time. I'm an introverted extrovert, I guess. That's that's a way to categorize my type of personality. I mean, I'm assuming you're something similar, Sway.
I think as I get older, this is how I see myself. I'm an extrovert that wishes he was an introvert. That kind of sound funny, but
yeah, I gotcha. Same. I mean, I used to be very introverted. Like growing up, I was a quiet kid in school, very shy, and then just kind of flipped to the other side of the coin, like throughout college, and after that, just other side of the coin. Now I'm in between. Yeah.
Sure. I don't know what else we can cover here. I think we've talked about some pretty fun stuff. It's gone by pretty quick.
Yeah.